Hello everyone, welcome back to the new session on SAP ABAP on HANA. In the last class of ABAP on HANA, we had discussed about connecting to our CAL system, setting up the license into the CAL system. We saw what are all the different users and the roles available by default in the system for us to connect to the ABAP system as well as HANA system. We had also installed the licenses of ABAP and HANA system into the system. Then we looked at the ABAP development tool features. We explored how ADT helps us to increase the developer efficiency by trying out different stuff in the system. We also looked at some shortcuts into ADT and also implemented a brief example with template design pattern. Then we started looking at the new syntax for SAP Netweaver 7.4, and we had looked at by far the inline data declaration. The next example was on writing the select queries with the comma separated field selection list and also escaping of host variables. In the select queries, basically it will work in select queries. Then we looked at how to create object. So how to create object with the new syntax, and that's where we got stuck. And then we also were trying to look at creating an internal table with data, and there also we saw an issue which was not working. So let's have a look at this new syntax. I will now show you new syntax for creating objects quite easily, and for that I will have to now switch to my ABAP on HANA system, and you can see I have started just now my CAL server. Now, one important thing to notify all of you that I have used a different data center in Amazon, and you see the data center which I used is EU region, European region. The advantage of using this is it is faster as compared to the data center in the US, and that's why you see I am bearing more cost from the side of CAL. I'm bearing more cost to Amazon. For you, it will be 0.87 US dollar per hour. For me, it's more, but I'm okay because I feel that I should get better performance because my data center is now in European region, EU region. It's more stable as compared to the US region. Yeah, that's why I'm paying more cost for it. That's okay. And now you see I have my IP address obtained. I copy this IP address, go back to my ADT, and of course I have to also go to my SAP GUI and right click on my system which I added yesterday, go to properties, and then change the IP address over here because now I've restarted the server. I suspended it yesterday and then it got restarted today, so new IP address have come up which I have to put it now over here. So I click on OK. At the same time, I got to now go to my ADT, remove this ABAP project which was created yesterday. I will remove and add it once again because this is no more relevant. It's still pointing to the old address. I also choose the option delete project from the disk as well, this option to delete it permanently from the system. Fine. So I do that and then re-add the ABAP system once again into ADT tool. So this was one confusion yesterday we were seeing for some of you, so I wanted to demonstrate it. From the next session onwards, I will do this activity of adding the system to my Eclipse and stuff well before the session starts, so that we don't waste further time in doing this activity again and again. Yeah, so this is a bare minimum activity which you have to do after you just do suspension of your server and resume your server. Of course, the IP address in the CAL changes, and that's the reason you need to do this activity over here. So I'm just doing a deletion. At the same time, now I'll go back to my subQuery and show you that I'm able to log in. Same activity I got to now do it with my HANA system, because the IP address, of course, for HANA system is also different. So let me log in as our developer user. By the time ADT is preparing, it's taking some time over here to delete this, so that's okay. Maybe I got to just quickly restart my Eclipse. Okay, it's working. Yeah, it got deleted now. And I switch to my ABAP perspective and just create a new project and add the ADT also over here. So new ABAP project, and just choose my server which has now the updated IP address, and just provide my master credential for my server and just get connected to my ABAP server. Great. Now another interesting thing which I will be doing from today's class onwards, any source code which you see here, including the classes and programs and interfaces, I'm going to copy this source code, guys, from here. So what I will be doing is I will copy this entire source code to a notepad file. Okay, and I will save this source code as a notepad file, and then I will upload it in our blog, our training blog. So this source code, unfortunately I cannot share it with you because you are not connected to same server, but by the way, using this notepad technique, you will also be able to see the updated source code in our training blog. So if you go to training blog, in our training blog session presentation and study material, I will post our PPT over here and also the source code in this section. Okay, so right now you see some old source code which is kept, all the text files. This is from my previous batch, so I'm gonna remove them. So if you want guys these to be stored, please download, or maybe I'm gonna put them in an obsolete folder and I create a new folder where I will be uploading our source code which we are practicing on everyday basis. Fine, so that's what I will be doing so that you don't
Sure.
feel
Please put
it's
it in
little
a
different. Yes,
folder.
sorry.
Yeah, please put it in another folder.
Correct.
We would like
I'll
to.
delete this folder. I'll keep this folder and I'm going to put it in a new folder, which let's say something I will organize so that you
Okay.
still have the old code, which was from my previous batch. Some of these
Okay.
reports will also help us going forward. Okay. And
Good.
of course, this
Thank you.
PPT I'm going to remove, guys, because this is the old batch PPT. I'm going to put our new batch PPT, which we are going through. So this I cannot store it here. Okay. I'm going to remove this. Great. So that's just a news for all of you. And then let's continue our discussion. So we were seeing how to create the new class object yesterday, and we were unable to achieve that. So let me go back to our report program where we were trying to create the new class object with new keyword, and it didn't work. And I just did a small, very small mistake. It's very easy to do so. So inline data declaration once again, and just use your class name, put new keyword, put class name and empty parenthesis. That's it. This is the way to create the new object in ABAP with the new syntax to create a new class object. Now, as you know that sometimes our classes have constructor and that constructor has parameters. So you need to probably also pass the constructor parameters. Those parameters you can pass it inside the parenthesis. So let me quickly do that. I'll do one thing. I'll just go back to our passenger class and I'm going to add a constructor in this class. And then what will happen ultimately, it will also allow you to add those parameters of constructor in it. So maybe I will just go back and go to SC24 here in the graphical editor, ZCL underscore passenger plane, go for change, and now I am going to include a new constructor. So as we all know, what is a constructor of a class? It's nothing but it's a special method of a class which gets called when the class gets instantiated, when the object of the class gets created, right? So that's the constructor. You can create it here in the form editor, and you can also add some parameter. So it's a passenger plane, so I want to have a parameter that I underscore number of seats. Okay, it's a passenger plane, so that's a special parameter I'm passing to my class. And then maybe it's an integer one, primitive data type in ABAP, and then I go to attribute and just add also this attribute called number of seats. Okay, so that's a class attribute I'm creating. It's an instance private attribute I'm creating of int1 type. Okay, I did a mistake. Instance, yeah, save this. And now what I'll do is in my constructor of the class, I go in the implementation, and then in the implementation here I'm just going to initialize my class variable me arrow number of seats equals to my importing parameter. Yeah, that's what I will do. And then I will also put that's it. I will put some now method uh, into the interface which we will also implement here. So now it's saying, yeah, so wherever now you're creating the object of the passenger class, it's going to give you an error because you have forgot to pass the mandatory constructor parameter. So let's also do one thing, make this parameter as an optional parameter, so wherever we are creating object of this class, it won't create problem for us. Okay, so I'm making it is optional in the constructor. So this is all basic OOPS ABAP knowledge which we all should have as an ABAPer. What is different syntax, which is what I will be covering in this section. Okay, so now here is an error. It says that instance attribute instance methods me can access only after the constructor of the super class is called. So of course we also missed one point. We have to call the super class constructor. So using super keyword constructor we have to call, and after that only we should be able to access the instance attributes. So that's one quick issue which it is giving me. So I corrected that, do a syntax check, and you see now it's syntactically good. Let's activate our class and we will be ready. Now you would see a difference when I create the object using new syntax. What will happen? The number of seed parameter which we had exposed will be now available inside the parenthesis. So this is what we also do in JavaScript. If you remember in Fiori classes, var object of, let's say, button control equals to new sap.m.button, and then inside this we were passing curly braces and all the parameters related to the class in SAP UI5. Same syntax now here, new keyword and the object name, basically the class name, and inside this all the parameters which you would like to pass. That's the new syntax. Let's come here and regenerate the syntax, control space, press shift enter, and it would regenerate the interface according to the new syntax. And now you see it has got a parameter called number of seats which will get initialized when we are calling it. So I can now pass, let's say, number of seats as 20, and that goes and sits inside my private attribute of plane class. Let's do one quick thing. Similarly, let's put in another attribute for cargo class called cargo space. So here passenger plane is recognized by number of seats, but a cargo plane is recognized by its cargo space, how much freight it can carry, right? If it's a FedEx airplane, then you would see how much is the storage capacity of such a cargo plane, how much goods it can carry for me, right? So that's what you are more interested in case of a cargo plane. So let me do that. I'll go back and go to my cargo plane. So I will come here and say cargo and just go for change mode. And then what I'll do is switch to form based editor in GUI and search, put here cargo space instance and private attribute one more time. It's integer 4, and then I can say, of course, I'm going to add a constructor again in this class. Go inside. Of course, let's also add a parameter I underscore cargo space. Make sure the parameter has type optional with integer 4, same as compatible with our attribute. Go inside the method and let's set the parameter value me keyword cargo space equals to I underscore cargo.
You have to put super class, correct?
Yes, we have to put that, of course, otherwise it won't allow me to activate like earlier. So let's put super class constructor. Very simple and straightforward example, nothing complicated, guys. And let's activate our cargo class as well. Now what I'll also do is put a special method to access this private attribute. So as you all know, if there is a private attribute in a class, you can't access it directly from outside its object using its object. Basically, you got to have a setter and getter method for such a private attribute. So I'm just gonna write a method show me capacity. Yeah, and that's a generic method which has different implementation in both our classes, cargo and passenger class. So for passenger class it will behave differently, for cargo class it will behave differently, and of course that concept is called polymorphism. Poly and morphism, poly means many, morphism means forms. One method with a name behaves differently in different classes and called polymorphism concept in object oriented world. Yeah, same method behaves differently in different classes, one method behaving differently. Poly, many, forms means it's polymorphism, morphism means forms, many forms, one method in many forms. So let's go ahead and do that. And also important factor that you have to go to abstract class and make it abstract, which means nobody should implement this method in abstract class, because you don't know, is user expecting a number of seats or is user expecting cargo space, right? Because you don't know, it depends on plane. What do you mean by capacity? If it's a passenger plane, it means for you that you want the number of seats, and if it's a cargo plane then you mean it differently. Yeah, so make it abstract so nobody by accidentally also implement this method here in abstract, and then go ahead and provide implementation for this in different classes. So now you get this show me capacity. Let's redefine, and for cargo plain, we will say it will print you basically the capacity. So I say write statement, and then I say cargo space is, and then of course I need to now put here something. So what will you do in ABAP anybody's if you want to print along with the text some value, some variable? What will you typically do? So you will put probably a comma and also put your your variable name, right? Cargo space, and then you can again put comma, and you would say this many boxes it can carry, or this much of square feet space it can carry. Yeah, so that's your capacity for cargo space. Now another option to achieve this is what you do is you do a concatenated operation, and you put all these three things in a concatenation way, and then you concatenate into a string variable, right? That's what we typically do in ABAP, right? This is a very common practice what we typically do in ABAP. Yeah, and then we of course put this string variable over here, and then we can also declare this string variable over here, type string. This is also what we typically do in ABAP. Now let me also tell you an amazing feature with which is available with NetWeaver 7.4. Whenever you're doing such kind of concatenation operation, it makes it easier now for us with the new syntax, and that's called new string operator syntax, or called string expression. In ABAP from NetWeaver 7.4, we have something called string expression, which is allows you to focus on creating strings, large strings, without using concatenate. Yeah, not required anymore. So also it allows to inject variables inside a string. Yeah, you can do that inside string. You can inject variables. So here, like, this is a variable, right? It's a variable you're injecting here. It allows you to also inject a variable. So let me tell you the syntax. Simply don't worry about putting single quotes. Okay, don't worry about single quotes anymore. Now it becomes complicated if you want, a single quote to be printed. So what you typically do, you also put like this. Yeah, you also put like this things you will put like this. If you want a single code to be printed, you also put, something of this sort in the system. Yeah, this will now print a single code for you, right? So this is what it becomes more and more complex when you are concatenating the value and also want to print a single code for the user. Yeah, it becomes complex. Now this can be simplified with our new string expression syntax. Just put a pipe operator to concatenate strings, and also use curly braces to inject variables. Okay, curly braces. So there are three types of brackets in our life. This is what is our schooling knowledge, which many of us has forgot in our life, which creates problem for us in our real life. As a programmer, imagine you are a 20-year or 10-year or 8-year of experience, and you don't know the difference between different brackets. When you are telling your colleague, ये वो सोचेगा कि अरे यार इसको ब्रैकेट और ब्रेसेस के बीच में डिफरेंस भी नहीं मालूम है. What kind of a bapper he is, what kind of a developer he is. He don't understand symbols of keyboard. This happens very often. We don't pay attention to these small things, and they hurt our feedback. They hurt mentality of a person who is working with you. Now you see a lot of people, freshers with lot of energy joining companies, and they all always talking about startups and lot of innovating things. And what we've been doing since last 10 year 8 year in industry, it's all changed. Yeah, and that is one reason why you need to still showcase your experience, that boss, though you may have an amazing energy, you may have learned new things, but yeah, my experience matters. Okay, so with that, let's note down different types of brackets available. This is called parenthesis. Okay, which usually people will say bracket. Okay, this is actually not a bracket. This is called parenthesis. In Hindi we call it as chota bracket. Okay, then comes is majla bracket in Hindi. This is, we call it as curly braces. Okay, or braces also. Then finally comes is bracket. Okay, this is called bracket. bada bracket we call it in Hindi. Okay, so these three different variety of symbols we have, all three have different meanings. In programming you cannot interchange their meaning. Okay, very careful you need to be. You can't use something else at a place of something else. Okay, not possible, should not. Okay, you will see the significance of these three now in today's class. So curly braces, I mean, is this one, this middle bracket. So let's go back. So I'm gonna now write down the same statement. I'll keep it here so you can compare it. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it here, and this also not required. You don't need now a local variable to do concatenation. You can simply do write statement, of course your write statement, and then put a pipe operator and dot. That's it. And inside this, whatever string you would like to type, you type it with single quote, doesn't matter. Whatever you want to print as it is, you put it inside the pipe operator. And you can say cargo space is single quote, and then you want to print the variable value, insert a curly braces, and then put a single quote once again, and then say cargo space is this square feet. Okay, and in this curly braces now you inject your variable. Okay, you can also do like this, space, and inside this here you can put your variable, me arrow control space and my cargo space. This is new string operator or string expression in ABAP. You will see the usage of this extensively going forward, where I will write some more code around this. See how easy it is for using this operator as compared to the earlier multi-line code got converted to a single line. Amazing. Thanks for NetWeaver 7.4 evolution of SAP NetWeaver and ABAP language. This has nothing to do, again I repeat, with SAP HANA. This is something which SAP NetWeaver 7.4 provides you. If you are on NetWeaver 7.4, how do you check that? Go to systems, status, and then you will get to know here this option called component, and then you can check what is the NetWeaver version you are into. Okay, so you can see SAP basis 750. This is 750 guys, what we are into. That's great then. So which means we are even more advanced than 740, and you will also realize some powerful things which I will do in upcoming days. In case of especially CDS chapter, there are some things which you can't even do in 740, like CDS with table functions. And believe me, nobody will teach you. None of the trainer these days teaches these advanced things. What if you attend any training? Believe me, I have attended many online trainings for ABAP on HANA to see what my competitors are offering, and I have seen CDS view for them means up to association. They will only teach basic CDS view, then CDS view with conditions and expressions, and then they will show you association concept and some annotations they will show you. That's the end of the CDS view chapter for them, my competitors. But what we will see additionally in our course, we'll look at the authorization concept for CDS view. It's called CDS access control. We will look at CDS table function, which is only available with 750. We will also look at UI annotations in CDS, which helps you to build a Fiori app right away from CDS view. We'll also expose the OData from CDS right away. All the three techniques to expose the OData service from CDS view. And finally, virtual data model with S4 HANA, how to use S4 HANA programming techniques to build a CDS view with which you can build an analytical app out of the box right away. Also, if possible, I will show you BOPF integration with CDS view, which allows you to create a draft like application. Entire transactional app using CDS view can be created. Yeah, so this was something which was not part of my last batch. Those who attended my last batch, I did not touch upon. There was one question also from one of the student, Anubhav, can we do DML operation, transactional like operations using CDS? My answer was no, but now I have learned the new techniques which allows me to do even transactional things with the help of CDS view. So that's what I will also cover in our current course. We will look at BOPF integration with CDS. I have recently learned that part from one of the TechEd presentation, and I will include that in our current course. So don't worry, it's there. I'm also continuously evolving myself, learning new things so I can bring it on the real value to all of you. Okay, so let's go on now. No more talks about what is the future. Let's live in present. So that's our write statement. Now you'll see a beautiful output being printed when I say show me capacity. I go back and do the similar stuff implementation for my passenger plane, of course. And let's go back and let's do this for our passenger plane. And let's come down and let's see where is my implementation for that method. I don't see it yet, so I got to switch to the editor for form based and just redefine this method over here. Select this and go for redefine and write the coding inside here. And just I will say once again a write statement, and I'll say a pipe operator, remember, and as it is you can put everything with injection of your variable using curly braces. So the capacity, the number of seats are curly braces, and inside that two spaces, of course, before you put variable, arrow symbol, and number of seats I'm injecting as a variable. You can inject multiple variables, don't worry. Okay, so I did that. Let's go back and activate. We are good. And now we're just going to call this method from our interface show me capacity in our caller program. So let's switch to the caller program here. Now you see in my constructor is also taking this parameter for my passenger plane. Similarly, now if I create an instance of my cargo plane, I can say data lo cargo. You see inline data declaration, very powerful. I don't need to now put separately the cargo and passenger objects. It's an inline data declaration. ZCL cargo, ZCL plane underscore cargo control space. And yes, there it is. And then put control space once again and shift enter to generate the code. And now you see you got an import parameter called cargo space. Let's pump in the value for cargo space, and let's say this has 800 square feet of space to carry my freight into it. Then I will also pass the object to the interface, basically mapping the object of child class to the parent class. This concept in OOPS ABAP known as widening cast concept, where you assign child class object to the parent class. It's called widening cast concept in OOPS ABAP. When you do a reverse process where you assign the parent class object to the child class, you got to use a different symbol called question mark equals to, and it's called widening cast concept in OOPS ABAP. Okay, so let's save this. We are good, and let's now call our new method lo underscore plane and then show me the capacity. That's the new method we have added. Okay, and then I'm just gonna save this and let's activate it, and we are ready to test. As you know, the output is not supported by Eclipse IDE, where it will open a SAP window for us. Execute it, and now you will see your selection screen with type of plane which you can pass. So let me pass it as a passenger plane. Execute it, and you see autopilot on, and you see now at the end the number of seats are 20. See guys, this is what we pumped inside our constructor. It initialized my private variable which I'm now using to build this expression, a string expression, which is now printed over here. Wow, what an amazing stuff. Let's go back, move it to cargo. 800 square feet should be printed now. So execute. Oops, a dump comes up. Very nice. That's what I love about SAP dumps, which helps you to learn a lot. So I love when the dump comes and you see accessing using zero reference object is not possible. So there is something wrong. Probably our object did not create properly. Maybe we can analyze the dump information. Just scroll down a little bit and check it out where it dumped actually. So we are passing now lo plane equal to, you see guys the problem, I did a mistake. Lo pass I am assigning to plane object, but I'm actually creating lo cargo object. So this is the problem why my lo plane is initial, and that's what it says object ref not assigned, which means my plane lo plane doesn't got an object because it goes into the else condition and it dumped it. So I passed here passenger object only to my interface object. Above also same thing. Of course you're creating cargo object here which you need to pass. So let's pass cargo object, save this. We are good. Activate the class, sorry, program, execute it, and now let's test for cargo. Execute, and yes, wow, you see a single quote, especially This is what was difficult earlier in concatenation operation. You got to put a lot of string variables to bring this single quote, but now here it's completely easy and possible. What you write is what you get. That's the principle on which your string expression works in ABAP. Cargo space is 800 square feet. Based on the plane type, you will see it will automatically go to the right implementation because we have a polymorphism for all these methods. A common functionality anyways, however, implemented in the base class. That's how you design a software in the right way, by keeping in mind that you are extensible for future purpose. Now if there is a third type of plane, let's say aircraft or private aircraft type of plane comes, it's easy for me to define that, because I can then put another concrete implementation, another load method, that maybe a CEO of a company is boarding, and then capacity is of course very low in case of a private jet planes, right? So that's where the implementation will differ. Great. So now we are done with this. So new syntax for creating object. This is what we see. The another example which I wanted to show is creating internal table with data. Earlier we were kind of not able to achieve this one with the value expression, with basically this is called value expression, creating the variables dynamically. And this is what we will see now. How can we create it? So I did a mistake, guys, with this. So let me go back to our program and show you what mistake we were doing. So zsample was the program where I wanted to create now an employee table with employee number and name. Now the first problem which I did is this type is type of a structure type. Okay, how will it produce an internal table? Because it's pointing to a structure type. So if you want it to be worked, then it has to be a table type. So for that, I'll create tt_emp type table of ty_emp. Now it's also important that this table type what you create has to have something called a key. You need to define the key. So right now I'll say it should be created with empty key. Yeah, and that's it. This is important. And now reference this tt over here, which would then led it to create an internal table with 3 records appended already into it. That's it. We are done. Save this. We are good. And let's use our yesterday's created code snippet, which is available. So you see, I'm going to loop it over the internal table using loop at it tab, and then put my work area. That's also an inline data declaration I'm going to put here. And then of course I'm going to do control space employee number, control space employee name. Very nice. Remove the third one and just print the data. So it will now get 3 records, 10, 20 and 30. So that's called value expression in ABAP, a new syntax to create an internal table using type with data ready to use. You don't have to now create a separate work area, insert the data there, and then insert append work area to iTab again and again. Not required. You can dynamically create using value expression a complete table pretty easily. Yeah, let's activate it and test it. You're going to see now the data will be printed on the UI. That's called value expression. That's not all. It also gives you an amazing feature which was never ever available in ABAP, and we were like kind of yearning it. Those who are working in Java or JavaScript, you see there is an amazing feature. You can access the value by key, but here you have to write a read statement first of all to read the internal table based on key. Now this has been simplified by SAP. So let me show you an amazing capability. So suppose I want to now print the name of employee with employee number 20. What will you do in conventional ABAP? You will write read statement, read table, itab into work area with key emp number equals to 20. Yeah, and then you used to say write statement and then say work area hyphen employee name. This is what we used to do conventionally, right? Let's test it. This should print what? Anybody? Can you guess what will be the data which it will print? Anyone?
Mega. Mega.
Yes. So I'll say my search result will be printed. So it, of course, it will print mega. Now let me show you the new expression. Let's not use old expression anymore. Use pipe operator. My search result is curly braces, and inside that put here the value work area hyphen employee name. This was the old technique. Okay, string syntax is new for you, but yeah, this was the old technique to read a value from I tab, right? Save this, test it. Let's see the result. It should print, of course, mega, because with employee number 20, the employee is mega. But now let's look at the new syntax with ABAP. It's also possible, like in other programming technique, directly to access a value based on its index. So you can do, let's say, create a inline variable data lvemp name equals to your internal table bracket. Okay, bracket your value of the field which you are searching for. I'm searching for where employee number is 10. Okay, get me the record where employee number is 10, hyphen control space employee name. That's it, they're done. This is the new syntax. It will search for an employee in this internal table where employee number is 10. Whatever result comes, I am accessing. Basically this will produce one single record now for you. Okay, and then it will we will access the value. Now your question can be, Anubhav, what if there are more than one employee with employee number 10? It will return you the first hit. Okay, it will return you the first hit. You can try that. I request you to please keep your line muted, guys. So 10, and I say here Mario. Okay, if you want all the hits, you have an option for loop at iTab. Okay, that's the only option you have it. If you want all the hits, execute it, and let's see the value which it will print in LV name. So I will just put this as a write statement, and I'll say value with new syntax is my LV, oops, my LV employee name. Of course, you have to put a space between these curly braces inside. Let's activate and test it. So now you'll see the result. It would produce ultimately the same result for us. And you see, value with new syntax is Anubhav, it has found. Because I am searching with employee number 10. You see, with 10 there is also Mario. With 10 there is Anubhav. The first hit from top, whatever it has got, it has produced it. That's the new syntax called table expression syntax, where you can search something in the table directly. This is called table expression. Let me note down here. So what we saw today is syntax for string expression, and then we see a table expression is used to search a value in table with one of the column. Okay, where you can put the syntax is your internal table name, your column name. Remember, space makes a sense here, and then your column value based on the type of value it is. If it's an integer, don't put single quote, hyphen the result column, what you want to print. Of course, it will produce a work area at runtime, and that work area, any column which you want, you can access that. Save it. We are nice. Let me try flipping the table. What I will do now is search by employee name. Okay, so I'll go here and I'll say employee name. I want to get the employee name where employee name is Mario. Okay, and that's what I want employee number for that employee name. Let's execute it, and we should see it will search for Mario, and of course for that employee name is 10. It's going to print that. Yeah, let me put a slash statement so it switches to a new line, and let's test it. So now execute, and you see value with new syntax is 10. Yeah, it has found Mario in the system where the value is 10. Very nice. That's what the new table expression helps you to do. Quickly search the value and pump that value to any. Now this can be used even with a method parameter. Suppose there is a method which needs employee number to be passed inside. You can use this as a parameter also to pass this value as to the method. Of course, now these were some very simple example to understand the concepts. We're gonna use these concepts in our upcoming days extensively, so that now you don't have to worry about Anubhav, what did you wrote, because now you know the new syntax. Similarly, in the above syntax, if you see we created a table, you can also create a work area. You can create a simple structure with a single record. So I can say data, and I say single employee, okay, and I can say space equals to value and put the type. So this time I'm putting structure type, which means only single record. So emp number equals to 100 space emp name equals to Roger. That's it. This would have produced a single work area for you. Fine. It's just a single structure, which field string basically in ABAP. Single structure for you. Great. So that's the syntax, overall new syntax. Of course, there's a lot more action to come. In upcoming days, we will look at what is the enhancement in SQL statement, SQL queries. What is the enhancement in SQL queries in ABAP? There are new things which we can use in SQL queries. In upcoming days, we'll see that. Okay. Now, there's a question, can we pass multiple parameters? What do you mean by multiple parameters? I did not get your question, Krish. What is multiple parameters? Of course, you can pass more parameters into the iTab. Of course, you can. I think you can. So let me show you that. Maybe I'll also include a salary column in all the fields, and I say 100 and just add this over here in all the rows, and I say 200, 500, 650, or maybe, yeah, 650. Yeah. So let's save this.
Use it in Bitcoin, Anubhav. Looks like very low salary.
Yeah. So type integer and save this, and let's activate it. We have now a new column injected, and let me search now based on two parameters. So one is Mario, and also search with salary equals to something 650. I save this. You see, now I'm passing 2, just the way I could have passed in the read statement with key 2 parameters, right? Similarly, I'm passing 2. By default, it's always AND operator. Okay, I'm not sure if I can pass OR. No, that is not allowed. It's always like read may. In the read, you can never pass OR, right? Similarly here, it's by default always AND. It's just like a implementation of read statement in a different way, guys. So technically what SAP did, they just take this read statement and implemented it with a different syntax. So fundamentally nothing have changed, but now you have an easy syntax to simplify your code and keeping it same as across programming languages. In Java, in JavaScript, we have similar syntaxes. So that's what they're trying to do, to simplify the life of a developer, trying to take the ABAP language closer to other languages. That's the whole improvement. Yeah, this has nothing to do with performance improvement. It's basically just new syntax. It won't give you performance improvement for sure. Okay, just makes your life easy and takes it closer to other programming languages. Let's activate it, and I'm gonna now run this. So of course it's gonna give me the same result, employee number 10 for Mario, because I pumped in the required salary property 650, which is matching. Great. Let's move on now to some more advanced feature. Yesterday I was talking about profiling. So profiling also helps you to enable new features. But before that, let's have a look at the debugging. So I also have a debugging feature available. We can debug directly in ADT. So let me set up a breakpoint in our fly plane example, and what I'll do is I'll just put it in the load method, a debugger point. So just double click, and you see now it's saying conflict breakpoint detected between the SAP GUI as well as my ABAP program. So I say continue, not a problem, and now you see it has set up a breakpoint for me in ADT in my Eclipse. You see this nice light blue color symbol, which indicates that you have now a debugger set. So to open to debug things now in ADT, you have to also switch to a debug perspective. So better you let that on, so you have an open perspective option, and you also have a debug perspective. So click this option, debug perspective, click in open, and now execute your ABAP program in the debug perspective. Now by mistake, if you forgot to open debug perspective, you are still on ABAP perspective, it will automatically take you to debug perspective. Don't worry. Okay, you don't have to mandatorily open it. So now I am still on ABAP perspective. Let's execute the program, and you will see it should open up the debug perspective once I enter the value. So I am executing now, and it will quickly open the debug perspective for me. So same functionality like you debug in SAP GUI. Of course, you are not used to this environment, so it will take some time for you to gel up with this new environment. But after you are comfortable with this, you will see an immense improvement in in the efficiency, in a developer efficiency, because okay, now it's saying debugger cannot be launched because application server host is not reachable from the machine. So there's some problem, I guess. In my case, it's not able to launch. Maybe I'll try in debug mode itself, already in debug perspective, and execute this program. I will come to the question, just hold on for a minute. So I put here P, execute it, and now let's see if it kind of opens this up already in the debug perspective for me or not. I think it's trying to connect to the cal server, because from there it has to now return a debug window for me, which is not happening in this case, and that's why it's not working. Maybe we will try with the program which is not having a selection screen. Okay, so let's go back to a program which is not a selection screen. So I go with this jet simple and try here with this one, set up a debugger, execute, and I think it's not working because my cal server is not allowing me to do so. So it's more or less the same option. You can see also at the bottom it's saying launching debugger, but kind of not able to connect to the cal server to get the debugger session in ABAP. Yeah, so that's something which it is not able to do so. I'm not sure, some problem with our window. Okay, you see it's getting me an issue, but more or less the concept of the debugging remains absolutely same. With ADT you can debug. Once you connect it to your productive system, hopefully you would see that you would be able to debug with same set of shortcuts. There's no change in the shortcut also. Of course, anyways, I can show you debugging directly over here in my SAP GUI. So I can go to SE38, just open up the program Z fly planes, click on display, and let's debug in directly SAP GUI. Of course, you always have a SAP GUI installed in your system for even with ADT. Yeah, so I just set up a session breakpoint, execute it, put the passenger plane and execute once again, and this would open up my debug for SAP GUI. Let's see, or maybe, yeah, you can see it has returned me an debug instance, and now it goes to the load method, and you can also see here which class it has taken me for the load method. It has taken me to the passenger class, and then here some write statements, and then you come back. Now the fly method, of course, that's implemented in my abstract class, so it now took me to the abstract class. You can see on the right hand side, abstract class it has taken me. So I press F7, and now I go to show me capacity, and here you see it's going to show me the capacity. So that's all gets printed ultimately. Very simple example for practicing purpose, understanding the basics of ADT. What else ADT offers me? It offers me something called a profiler tool. With the help of that, I can do a runtime analysis of my program. Yeah. Before that, let's have a quick look at the question. There's a question, Anubhav, can I check size RC after new read statement? I hope so, because as you know that it's just an implementation of your read statement. Yeah, so you can of course do that size RC after this. So I can put an if statement, and then I can say sci hyphen sub RC. If it is equals to 0, please print this one, else, and just gonna write, and then I say chain operator and say value not found. It should behave, as I mentioned, it should behave absolutely same as a read statement, because just a different syntax. Behind the scenes it's actually running a read statement. So let me intentionally make this value as a wrong value, so my read statement fails, of course, and activate it. As a result, you should see value not found towards the end should get printed in my report program. Let's execute it, and let's come here and see. Of course, I think I have a breakpoint. It's trying to launch the debugger. That's why it's taking a little bit of time. Unfortunately, it won't be able to launch it, but let's continue. And let's see what happens as a result. It should now give me Sabasi equals to 4 because the value was not found. Okay, it's dumping now. There's some problem. ITab line not found. Okay, you see, it's not making sub-RC changed, but it's giving me an exception, guys. So the new syntax is leading to an exception called ITab line not found. In read statement, it won't lead to exception, but it would lead to a sub-RC status. But this is more risky using the new syntax, you see. Now to handle this, you got to kind of do an exception handling in ABAP. So let's do that. What you got to do is this new statement, new syntax, what you had put has to be now encapsulated inside a try-catch block. So I'll now put this inside a try-catch block. And of course, if there's everything okay, it's your right statement, else it would lead to the catch block wherein now you can print the issue what it is facing. So what was the exception name? I forgot, so I can go to ST22 transaction where I can see the dump which has come up some time back, and it was ITab line not found exception. And what was the class? This was the exception class. I can now take the class name. That's good, we tried this example. So come here and put the class name and do an inline declaration of this object LO exception. And now you can just do a write statement and you can say LO exception object, get me the text. If possibly it has the get text method always, and that text gets printed what was the problem. So that's your exception handling, and of course exit from the program. Very nice. That's called exception handling in ABAP using object oriented concept. Yeah, hope this is all of you know this concept. That's a basic OOPS ABAP exception handling concept. Okay, this is what we ask to fresher as an ABAPer. If somebody comes for a ABAP job, this is what I ask him, how to do exception handling. Execute it. Now you will see it won't find and won't lead to any dump. Rather, it handles the exception and would give me a meaningful message on the UI rather than dumping the transaction. Okay, so let's see that. So this is also a good observation for me that it's not setting the sub RC status, instead leading to a dump. So I need to handle it little differently. And you see now there's a message value blank is not or is not in the table. This is the error message which it is giving me. Okay, fine, great. So let's move on to the profiler perspective and do a runtime analysis of this program, how much time this program is taking. So I think this is not a good candidate for runtime analysis. I want something which has some kind of database operation to be done. So what I'll do is I will go back and write a small method in our interface to just hit some kind of a database table. So I will come to ZIF plane and I'll say change, and I'm just going to insert a new method inside, and let me just switch to form based and say print products. Okay, or maybe something print airlines. Okay, and there is, as you all know, in our early days of ABAP we used to use a very famous table which contains all the airline names. It's called ASCAR table. I'm going to fire select statement on ASCAR table and just going to print the data from ASCAR table on the UI. So let's do that. I just go back to the implementation now in our abstract class. So ZAC plane, that's our abstract class. Go for change and implement this method newly introduced in interface in abstract class. So let's switch to form based and just going to implement the print airline method in abstract class. So what I'll do is select star from ASCAR into table, escaping of host variable data statement lt ASCAR. Okay, and then of course loop at internal table ltscar into inline data declaration once again as a work area, and just going to do a write statement work area hyphen I'm just going to put char ID and work area hyphen carrier name. What is the carrier name? Okay, great. That's it. So now, anybody, am I doing a good programming on ABAP on HANA? Anybody, am I doing a good programming as an ABAP on HANA developer? Is this a good programming example as an ABAP on HANA with the previous experience of what I covered in SAP HANA, how it organized the data? Is this a good programming? Of course
No,
not.
no.
Why?
Yeah, because using select star, we don't need all the fields.
Perfect answer. Very nice. Thank you so much for that answer. You look back now the previous PPT, we looked at the understanding of SAP HANA, how it stores the data. We don't use a row store. Making a select star is very risky because point one, it has to reconstruct now all the data records by traversing through these all tiny tables, which is presenting every single column. Though you need some less number of column, you are reconstructing the whole tuple, whole record once again by traversing through these all mini tables. Point one. Point two, between your application layer and database layer, what is happening now? You are saying, give me all, give me everything. But what are you printing on the UI is only two fields. So why don't you minimize the data transfer between HANA and ABAP application server? Why are you doing star? Why are you selecting high volume of data whereas you just need two columns? It's a bad programming style on ABAP on HANA. So this is very straightforward for all of you. Of course, I'm going to present in a short while the guidelines for ABAP. These guidelines are there since long time, not today, but yes, as an ABAP on HANA developer, you need to make sure that you never do select star. Make sure that you put column names, and as part of new syntax, you know that we can put char ID, comma con ID. This is possible with SAP Netweaver 7.4. You can also remove the comma, it will still work. That's the old syntax. In the new syntax, you can also put a comma between the columns. That's the new SQL's feature available with ABAP on HANA. Sorry, not just ABAP on HANA. With 7.4, you can put comma between the column names. It was not possible before 7.4. If you put a comma between columns, it would lead you to issues. It will lead you to errors, syntax errors in ABAP. With 7.4, it's possible to keep the comma between the columns. If we remove also, it will work, no problem. I remove this, save it, and do a syntax check. It will work. You see, oops, there's something else. Okay, now I have to put it. So unknown column name con ID until runtime cannot specify the field list. So you have to put, sorry, there's no con ID column actually. There is a char name column, guys. Okay, there is no con ID. This is not SPFLI table. It's a SCHAR table. I do a check. And now see it's saying escaping of host variable is must. So if I double click, you see if host variable are escaped with at the rate of throughout, then all the other should, then in that case we must include comma. Okay, if you are escaping host variable with at the rate of, you must put comma. If you don't put the at the rate of, then you can avoid putting comma. Then why it's giving me an error? So we have to put comma, guys, in new syntax. That's a mandatory now because we are doing inline data declaration. So if you want to do inline data declaration with escaping of host variable, comma is mandatory. But if you avoid inline data declaration, this then you have to declare this over here. It will work. That's your old way of writing the code. This is still valid. It won't change because in programming language we always have backward compatibility. See, syntax error free. But if you want to do an inline data declaration, of course, LTS char, then you of course have a cost to pay, which means you have to have comma separated field list. So in this, now you see you get an error. So that's why new comma is required. Hope this is clear to all of you, the new syntax. And now you see it's
Isn't
simplified.
isn't the comma is like in the native SQL HANA SQL window, you put a
Absolutely
comma?
correct. You're right. That's what I wanted to now also show you. You have raised a very good point. It's a native SQL statement in SAP HANA. HANA works with comma separated field list always. And to prove that, let me switch now the first example of our HANA DB. Switch to modular perspective and add our HANA DB. So it's already added. It won't help me because the IP address have changed now. You see, still it's pointing to old IP address. If I just try to open SQL console, it gives me an error. It's pointing to yesterday's IP address. It won't be reachable anymore because I'm in Amazon cloud server. IP address change on every suspension and resume, right? So let's use our new IP address to add this HANA system one more time. This has to be done every time. Okay, cancel this, not a problem. Delete this system, remove it. I'm just going to add it one more time over here with 02, and I just put it HDB next, and I will put here my user SAP A4H. I'll also have to tell you the story behind this. So just park this question, why this SAP A4H user, and put my master password to launch HANA instance. And you see here it is. Click on SQL console, and then you can try direct SQL statements on it. And you know that my ABAP system is connected to this HANA DB, which means there is also database table SCHAR over here. I can do select care ID from SCHAR. Now remember guys, you are in a HANA system. Now this is native SQL query which a database understand. If you go back quickly to our previous chapter where I taught you what is the difference between OpenSQL and native SQL, you see OpenSQL what you write in ABAP program, and native SQL is what the database abstraction layer converts and give it to your database. This yellow arrow, that's the native SQL statement. So now we are directly connected to our DB. We can fire a native SQL and test it. Okay, so execute. It just gives me a production system warning. Ignore it, say don't show, and say yes, and you see it has produced me the care IDs. Now if you use ABAP syntax space care name, that's my second column name, execute it, you see it is not showing me the carrier names, right? So you have to tell SAP HANA that these are two different columns separated by comma. Execute it, and now you see it shows me the values for the column. HANA won't understand that syntax. Now since it's ABAP on HANA, ABAP has to support this native SQL syntax also, and that's why SAP have improved their ABAP engine to also support the comma separated field list. Of course, some of the statement which I will try here directly will not work with ABAP. I will show you in upcoming days. For that, to give it to SAP HANA, we need to use ADBC, ABAP database connectivity. But don't panic right now for that. Okay, we'll come to those examples very well. You will understand all the concepts related to ABAP on HANA. Right now, we're still in ABAP layer and understanding what ABAP has changed, what has changed in ABAP, what is improved in ABAP. That's what we are right now learning. Okay, we have not yet reached to this topic of code push down. That's still far away. Okay, this is what I taught you. We have to do code push down. This is something which we haven't yet reached to or touched upon yet. I'm just explaining you what improved in ABAP evolution of NetWeaver. Right now I am into. Okay, soon we will go to code push down techniques in ABAP on HANA. Okay, we will leverage this HANA DB. Great. So where I was, okay, so let's go back to syntax. So that's my syntax now, and now you see it's better for SAP HANA. Let's save this, execute, and now I want to profile this. Profile means I want to do a runtime trace of my program. Anybody, any typical ABAP, which transaction code do you use in ABAP to do a runtime analysis of a program? Anyone?
SAT.
Perfect. So that, how do you do with ABAP on Eclipse? Using profiling tool, profiling perspective in ADT. Let me show you that. So you can directly do it here from ADT. Switch to your program, and yeah, I guess no, not this one. Maybe I have to call now this new method which I had introduced. So let me use my new method lo underscore plain object. And that's what I love about ADT. You know, while I'm typing, it's telling me there is a mistake you did. Yeah, that's what I love about ADT. That's something SAP GUI doesn't do until I press syntax check button. Yeah. Okay, show me capacity, not this one.
No, print airlines. Print airlines.
Absolutely. So print airlines, and that's it. We are done. Save it. And I want to now do a profiling before I test it. Profiling means I want to trace and know what are all the different classes got instantiated, what modules it has called. If you're calling a class, that class calls another class, and that class calls a function module. I want to know the entire trace. I want to know which are all the database tables it has touched. So that's what we do in ABAP using SAT transaction. With ADT, you can use profiler. So let's add a profiler perspective. Click on add perspective and switch to ABAP profiling perspective. Click on open. At the bottom you can see, okay, you can see here it has added this ABAP traces, ABAP trace requests. That's what has been added. Now I'm going to create a new ABAP trace request. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So let's come to ABAP trace request, right click. Okay, why it's not allowing me? Let me also drag this window properties over here. Hopefully we should be able to define. Yeah, you have to first select your ABAP project. So here it is. This is the project I have to select. Okay, and then you see this button becomes enabled. Create a trace request. Click on plus, and now you can, the beauty of this, you can schedule it. You want to know if there is a program which is getting executed at certain point of time. You just the way you schedule a program, you can schedule the trace also for a program. Yeah, and then what happens, you just come here and say it's a report program. Put your report program name. So it's Z fly planes. I want to trace it for this particular user in all the server. Of course, you can put your manager's name also to want to know that if my manager is running this program, what is the status. So put that, and then put the client server. Maximum number of trace file per server should be 3. Say next, and now executable this type transaction does not exist. Okay, sorry, it's a report, guys. I have to choose report, not a transaction. Say next, and now you say perform aggregated measurements, which means you want to see the full trace, or you want to just see the trace in terms of call sequences, or you want to see like let's say method A was called, then method B was called, then C was called. So that's what you see. Or you want to see aggregated call, which means if there is a class in which you have method ABC, it won't tell you ABC individually. Instead it will tell you just how much time this class took. That's called aggregated result. Okay, now, or you don't want time, you just want the hit list, like which class was touched, or you just want that. So I want a full trace, large file size. That's okay. Let it be performance. It will be, of course, a performance problem for you if you do this. And I want to say that switched on within debugger, or switched on immediately. So it will switch on it immediately. Every time you run it, your trace is going to capture the information. I want to also check the SQL statements which were fired at the database level. Now you can also define the timeout for this. You say if it's taking more time, then I don't want to do the trace. So maximum execution time should be 30 minutes, and the file size I'm also limiting it to 30 minutes. And that's the reason why SAT is now people don't want to use it, or they don't recommend you to use. Why? It's time consuming. It takes a lot of time, and it also hamper the performance of your program when it is running. And that's the reason why SAT has now kind of become obsolete. People don't use it, because especially you want to do such analysis in production system, because that's where your real data is present. That's where your real reports are running on transactional and master data, where you now want to see what's happening really with my real data. And this SAT tool will make your production speed down. So nobody recommends you to use SAT for performance trace. So what do we do? What's the solution? The solution is there with NetWeaver 7.3 7.1 SP12 onwards. We have a new tool called SQL performance trace, which we will also discuss in upcoming days. How can we optimize and find out the pitfalls of performance in production system without hampering the performance of production. And then you dump all the data, export it, bring it in your dev system, and there you do the analysis. Okay, so we'll look at that in upcoming days in our upcoming chapter, the new tooling updates. Okay, great. Then let's say finish. and we will see a new trace gets scheduled under this system. So similarly, if you have 20 projects, 20 different systems, you can see all the traces under this. So you see this is one trace, this is the system. Similarly, if I have more systems, all the systems will come here. Inside every system you will see the traces over here. Okay, so I double click on this trace now. So you see here the trace, and right now there is no result because I did not even execute my program. The trace is continuously running, waiting for my program to get executed. Let me execute the program. You see executions are 0 out of 3. So it will check for 3 different executions. Let me run my report. You will see a performance lag in our execution now because it will be captured by the trace. The trace parallelly runs with your program and checks what is all being covered, what is all being touched, which calls it is making, which methods it is going to, which database accesses it is doing. All that it will check for 3 times. 1 execution, 2 execution, 3 execution. I'll do it, execute it. Now you see it first launches this. I put P, execute, and come back. Okay, and let me execute it one more time. So let's remove this and execute one more time and put C, execute it, close it. Very nice. And let's refresh over here. This is the refresh button. And now you see 2 executions have been made by far to my program. If you want to see the results, come to ABAP traces, and here you should be able to see the results of your traces. Let's see, click here, refresh, and now you see 2 executions of your ABAP report and how much time it took. So first time it has led to transfer of about 42 KB of data, and second time it took about, sorry, first time it took 74 KB, second time it took 42 KB because the table data got buffered into application layer. So let's see first trace, double click, and now you see the detailed trace data over here, guys. Yeah, and you can also see this one. I think this is the first execution, and now you see this is my first execution where system has called this report program. This was the server which it has hit at this particular date and time, and now no aggregation. You can see all the call sequences because we didn't aggregated the data, and you see this beautiful thing. It's a nice chart which tells you how much time it took in ABAP application layer, how much time it took in database layer HANA DB to run this particular report, and how much time system took to initialize your variables, program, everything. That's a nice chart what you get to analyze the overall result. You can also now go to condense hit list where you can see what are all the different methods it has called. So you see from this program it is called this print airline method, load method, fly method, all that you see, and how much time each method took. You see print airline method took the maximum time, 646 milliseconds it took, or I think it's in microseconds, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's in microseconds. You can see it took 646 microseconds to execute this particular. So in the whole of the program now you know which method or which subroutine or function module taking the maximum time. So that's what your runtime analysis helps you to do that. You can also look at the hit list where you will now get the list of database tables which it has hit. You see it fetch SCAR table records. Yeah, so this is, it tells you the hit list, that which are all the database tables it has executed on. Then aggregated call tree, you will see now here which are all the different events which it is calling in what order. So first one you just got the hit list with performance measurement parameters, but now here you will see the sequence of call. So first it called the constructor of cargo plane, then it called again the load method of cargo plane, then in abstract class it called the fly method, show me capacity, and print airline method. So that's sequence of call between the different methods, or probably from your report program. If you see there is a method call from one method to another method, that also it will show you in a hierarchical way. That's an aggregated call tree. Then comes the call sequence. It's more or less the same thing. And now you see it also shows you some nice state here. So show known procedural statements. So click here, it expands and shows you what it is calling. So this is one of the best way to analyze what is the ABAP program doing. That's it. You cannot use this probably in production, because it will slow down the performance of your programs in production system, guys. We have a different tool for that. Then comes the timeline call, and there it shows you some nice timeline chart to see which call is taking how much time. Yeah, that's something you can see which class is consuming high memory, low memory, all that. DB, where is the DB access, how much time it is taking, in a chart format basically. And finally the database accesses. So in the earlier access of database hit list, you will see all the tables. Even some system tables will come up over here. But here in database access, you will only see the tables which are relevant for your program. And description about the table. It's a transparent table of airline, and it belongs to this package. So you can go ahead and also check these objects really in SEAT. So that's called profiling tool. Basically we don't use it much until unless we really have to deep dive inside a particular program and understand its feature. We don't use this for performance checks. We use a different tool for performance improvement, and I'm going to showcase you that tool in upcoming chapter. Okay, so that's about the ABAP performance tool. Debugging, of course, we cannot see it. And now there's another nice feature which you cannot do in SAP GUI, and that called feed feature. In feed feature, you can get the live feed. In case there is a dump in any program, it notifies you automatically. So how can you use such a feed option in SAP ABAP using ADT to create a new feed? In case, let's say, there is any time a dump in my program, please let me know. Okay, so that kind of feed you can create. So let's switch to, I think there is a feed perspective, not here. Maybe I go back to ABAP trace requests and create a new trace request, and there has to be an option to check the feed. I completely missed it. I don't remember where it is. So there will be an option to check the feed. No, it's not showing here. Let me just check. I think it's in our ABAP perspective itself. Yes, I know now. Here it is. So you see there is a feed reader. Go to feed reader, and now you can create a new feed. Say add feed. Now let's say what you're doing, you're working as an architect in a team, and you want to know if there is any dump in your set of programs which any of your developer working on, you will be notified. So you can create a feed over here. So select your system, click on plus, and select your system once again, and now you say what type of feed you want to define. I want to say if there is any dump in this system, let me know. ABAP runtime error. I'm defining a feed. Next, and now that's okay. Title should be this. It's fine. Refresh interval 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes it will go and check if there is a dump. Yes, there is a dump. Yes, there is a dump. After every 5 minutes it's gonna go and check. Okay, maximum time it's going to check 50 times if there is a dump or not. Okay, then you can also define here all the developer names of your team, which are all the developer working with different programs. That filter you can give. I want to say only for my user, and say finish. That's it. A feed has been now added. What will happen every time there is a dump in the system, you're going to see an error. You see, about 49 minutes ago there was a zero reference dump. It's immediately showing you actually. Now let me lead to a dump intentionally in the system. Okay, let me go and lead to a dump in the system. So what I'll do is just write a report which would lead to some dump. So z demo feed error, click this report, feed error, executable program. So next cycle of feed checking is after 5 minutes. So if there is any dump after 5 minutes, it's going to notify me. So I just put an assert 1 equals to 2. That's one of the developers way of leading to a dump. Intentionally execute it, and that's a dump over here, and let's wait. It will automatically give me a feed that there is a dump. So of course, the refresh interval is every 5 seconds. So if there is any dump every 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, next time when it is going and checking, it will find a runtime error, and that's what is going to come here in my ABAP development tools as a feed. So I can immediately go and pay an attention to my custom code which is leading to a dump in the system. Yeah. Similarly, you can add your production system in ADT, and then you can just define this feed job, which will then go and check if there is any dump in the system and let you know. Yeah, that's an amazing way of checking something, and that's not possible with ABAP. You can do it with the creating a background program in production, of course, but that's an easy way here ABAP development tools is doing for you. Okay, is there any is this can be used to monitor background jobs? I'm not sure, because you see the options which are available is not for background jobs. If I select it, you see only these options are available. Okay, system messages, if there is a system message, in which case system messages comes, let's say you've written a LUW, logical unit of work program in ABAP, where you are handling a complete transaction under an update work process, and if any of the update work process fails, then in that case you get system message. Yeah, so that's something which you will can define a feed on. etc findings, again ABAP test cockpit is one of the very important feature for a developer to ensure the code quality is good. And I'm going to show you the new etc features which are available with NetWeaver 7.4, and some of them are also applicable for HANA, because your first question which anybody ask you as an ABAP on HANA consultant, that we are now migrating to HANA database, what do you think, is our custom code which is there in company today will work or not work? Yeah, that's a very important question which people will ask you as an ABAP on HANA consultant. Will your existing ABAP code work or not work when we migrate to HANA DB, right? So what will be your answer? So you need to now apply or run an etc check on your custom package or custom programs, reports, function modules, to find is there any problem with any statement which is spurious and may not work with HANA. I'm going to show you those set of statements, what will work, what will not work, and that's how you can get to know that, okay, yeah, this thing is risky, this is something which you need to adapt when you migrate to HANA. And I'm not sure about UI creation error. I think it's related to some gateway issues. Not sure, never use this option. Okay, so that's about your profiling, debugging, and feed option available with ABAP development tools on Eclipse. Now let's have a look at the very important topic called EPM data model, because that's what is going to be our reference data model for all the exercises which we are now going to do on ABAP on HANA. So let's go and understand what is EPM data model in ABAP, because I'm going to show you a lot of features of SAP ABAP on HANA and HANA on top of this data set. Because to try out a practical example, you need a real business scenario, and that real business scenario is built on top of EPM model. What is EPM? EPM stands for Enterprise Procurement Model. Okay, Enterprise Procurement Model is basically a demo company which has all the development objects. You see the feed is coming. See guys, 4 minutes ago there was a dump. You see the feed reader is now letting me know that there was a assert condition violation which has happened 4 minutes ago by this developer user. That's the beauty of the feed option available with ADT. Wow, that's amazing. And that helps me to check who is a good developer in my team, or who is doing problems, creating some issues in the system by any chance, if there is something. Yeah. So I can set up a feed quickly on a report program, basically on a complete developer's user. Because of this developer, there was a dump in the system, and I can call him up into my meeting room and say, what are you doing? As an architect, that's a very good option. I have it. Okay, so it's a demo company which has all the development objects delivered with SAP Netweaver 7.4 onwards. Includes programs, tables, structures. Basically, all of them are called DDICs. Yeah, all of them called DDICs. So this is all delivered by SAP. A lot of sample programs, OData services, packages, business object processing framework, BOs, CDS views, lot of things they deliver, SAP deliver to us. So people or developers can work on reference scenarios for training and demo purpose. Okay, now suppose SAP has got with this amazing product called ABAP on HANA. Now your company, your manager or your client is asking you, can you show me some power of ABAP on HANA? Yeah, so how will you show that? How will you demonstrate the power? You need some sample data, you need some sample scenario, right? You cannot simply say, okay, give me a production system, I will do some experiment there and show you the power. Nobody will allow you, right? So one option is sidecar approach, but now why not directly on a real system? So you can make use of EPM model. It's a real business like model, which I will explain you in a minute. How is this real business works, and based on this you can create samples. And of course, one of the best way to train people also on ABAP on HANA, you'll see lot of examples we will learn during our course on this. Yeah, EPM data model. So what EPM data model is, let's imagine there is a company in this market, and it's an online shopping company like Amazon. Okay, like Amazon, Flipkart, it's an online shopping company. The company name here is ITEIO. This is the name of the company, ITO. Okay, that's the name of the company who is working into an online business industry, online product procurement and sales. Okay, so what is that Amazon does? It makes you meet seller with the buyers. So there are a set of sellers who are selling some products, and then there are a set of buyers who are buying some products. Now what Amazon does, it provides a common platform for people to come sell something and set of people to come and buy something from those sellers. In the middle, Amazon will make sure that the delivery is done by Amazon. So any product which you purchase, the shipment will be taken care, the supply chain is taken care by this Amazon or ITEIO company. Now it also manages all the sales orders, it also collects the payment from you and release the payment to the sellers, right? So it's just a mediator, and for doing this mediation without technically storing anything on their themselves, they are actually making a lot of profit just by supplying the product, buying, taking from somewhere and giving it to somebody else's hand, making some commission in the middle and making some profit. That's the business of online shopping, what ITEIO company is doing. So this ITEIO company has something called customers. Of course, there are customers who come and purchase the products from ITEIO. And then there are vendors who are supplying products to ITEIO for selling these products online on the internet. So there are customers, and then there are suppliers. Yeah. So technically customers and suppliers together, they are known as business partners, right? Make sense? They are known as business partners. And based on business partner type, you will decide whether this guy is a customer or this guy is a supplier, right? Based on partner type, partner function, if it is 0, 1, it's a customer. If it is 0, 2, he's a supplier. So that's what exactly happening here. It decides whether based on partner function in the business partner table, who is the supplier and who is the customer. So that is what happening in the ITEIO company. Now what happens if a customer requests for an order? They will log into the website like Amazon, and they will say, okay, I want to order 2 laptops, 3 pen drives. So let's say this is the sales order what they create. Let me make the font little smaller. Sales order. And what is this sales order includes? This sales order includes, I want to purchase 3 laptops, 2 hard disks, and 1, or let's say 5 pen drives. This is the sales order what they create, right? So this sales order comes to ITEIO. Now what ITEIO first does? Anyone? What do you think they have to do? Can they directly supply the material to this customer? They have to now first check if the stock is available for this product or not. Of course they have to check it. So what they will do, they will go to their inventory and check their inventory if the product is already available. So this is their stock. Okay, so this is their stock. In this stock, they will go and check if the product is available or not in the stock currently. This is what ITEIO first does. After checking, they realize that there are 2 laptops and 2 hard disk and 3 pen drive available. So what is available? Let me note that down. So but by checking, they will realize that out of what customer has ordered, there are 2 laptops, 2 HDD and 3 pen drives are available. What will happen? Anybody? Will they
You get a
wait?
purchase order. You purchase order to the
Correct.
supplier.
No. One question. Will they wait to procure this material first, whatever is missing, to give it to customer?
It depends on how the delivery has to be made, like whether they want a partial delivery or you
Absolutely.
want everything.
Now it's a very competitive market. If this company says to customer, please wait, I have 2 laptop, 2 hard disk and 3 pen drive with me. I am waiting for 2 more pen drive and 1 more laptop. Customer say, go get lost, I will purchase from Flipkart or somebody else. So what this company working on a model, whatever is available, they will immediately deliver that product. So they will immediately charge the customer. They create an invoice with the available products in them in their stock. Okay, and they will send an invoice to the customer saying that, boss, I have these many products right now available, you satisfy with these things and make me the money. Okay, give me the money for what I delivered to you by far. So they will invoice this customer. They have invoiced with the products which were available in the stock. At the same time, now they create a purchase order to their supplier. Okay, this is a purchase order to their supplier saying that I want something. Maybe I can also order an extra stock. Okay, I can order extra stock. I want 10 laptops, I want 20 pen drives, and since my stock for hard disk is also over, I want 5 HDD. So that's a purchase order they raise it to their supplier. Now what supplier does based on this purchase order, supplier will also send an invoice based on which they will do the they will based on this invoice, based on this billing, basically they will do billing to this ITEIO. Based on this, it will release the payment, and once the payment is done, or based depends again on payment terms, they will ultimately receive these goods. Okay, they will ultimately receive the products. So these goods, basically it's nothing but a goods. This goods is received. Once the good is received, what is the process? It creates a goods receipt document to the stock which updates your inventory. So basically it sends a goods receipt document, and that goods receipt document we use to update the inventory, saying that okay, yeah, we received the goods. Based on again payment terms, if the payment term says that after you receive material then you release the payment, you will then release of course the payment to the supplier. Now the stock is updated. After you do a goods receipt, you have these products which were earlier not available missing. You again create another invoice to the customer that, boss, congratulations, we have now made the product available for you and this is your pending order. It will send another invoice. Now, what is the learning for you guys with this scenario? Do you think the number of sales order item always matches with the number of invoice items? Yes or no? Anyone? What do you think? Number of sales order item will always match with invoice item, true or false? Anyone? What do you think? Will number of sales order items matches with the number of invoice
Not
items?
not not not, not
Not
necessarily. It depends
necessary,
on.
because you have invoiced the customer for the product which was available at that point of time, to avoid losing the customer, to avoid going the customer to somebody else, right? So that's why it is possible completely that an invoice has less number of item than what was actually ordered. Now all this business, what is happening, you understood now the business, how the business is happening. To store this data, we have database tables in the system. Yeah, it's a split delivery scenario basically. So we have now database tables to store invoices, sales orders, suppliers, business partners, customers, products, and of course you have products. Yeah, you have products data, because that's it, that is what all about the business for ITEIO. You also have product information in different languages, which is product texts. Yeah, you have basically business partner information, and for these business partner you also have address information, where exactly what all the different addresses this business partner has. Yeah, so all these database tables are ready to use, available for us in any SAP system which is NetWeaver 7.4 and above, for us to create reference scenarios, reference training scenarios, or also to showcase anybody, if in case required, the power of SAP HANA or ABAP on HANA. And that's what will be our base. Of course, now this is reference EPM scenario. On top of it, we'll also take a business use case. We'll take a proper use case and we will be building the scenario on top of it. Okay, so that's the whole setup. We have it. Let's now look at these database tables which are available in the system to build our scenario. So the first database table is products table. The table always starts with SNWD star. That's the naming convention for any table in EPM scenario. So if it is product table, it starts with SNWD underscore PD. Then comes is product text table. What is a text table concept in ABAP? Whenever you have some data which is language dependent. So if I say pen drive, in Chinese you will write it differently, in Japanese you write differently, in Russia you will write Russian language, French, English, German, different languages. You want to demonstrate your products to customer, so you need to be language dependent in case of product descriptions. So that is stored in another table, SNWD underscore texts table, where product descriptions are stored. Then comes is the business partner, your suppliers and customers, which are known as business partners, stored in another table, SNWD underscore BPA. The next database table is business partner address. I'm writing in short BP. BP address is stored in SNWD underscore addresses, address table. The next is we have sales order table. So sales order is SNWD underscore sales order, and items of the sales order is stored in SNWD underscore SO underscore item. Then comes is the invoices, SNWD underscore invoice header table. This stores all the invoices. And then comes is invoice item table, where all the individual products are mentioned, that what was sent to the customer in this invoice. So I sent one laptop, 2 pen drive, and 2 hard disk. So that's invoice items table. So where SNWD underscore I and invoice underscore item. Okay, these are all the main tables which we will be using, and of course as and when some more tables are required, I will let you know during our course. So these are all the main tables. Let's have a quick look at each table once again in the system, and now I'm going to show you the data in these tables in directly HANA system. So all these tables are now stored somewhere in HANA system. Okay, and now you may see that SAP HANA system is a very big database. Now usually when you have such a big database, you want to now separate the data. Why? Let's have a take a scenario where you have an SAP ABAP system which is your current production running on SAP HANA DB. Okay, so it's running on SAP HANA DB. Now they both are connected very well, very nice. Okay, they are connected very well, perfect. Now what you need to do is, you have an old system or legacy system in your company. This is having some legacy data. Okay, legacy data in some legacy system with some database it has, let's say Oracle DB. Now what happening here is, you have your enterprise procurement model in this Oracle also, let's say. So you have some products here and you have some products here. Now your company says that you want all the data to be now directly put to HANA DB. What will you do? You will do data provisioning, correct? Now, can you take a risk of bringing all Oracle data directly to your production table, to your productive table of SAP HANA, which is storing products? Can you take this risk? Can you take this?
No,
Of course not.
no.
What will you do? You will create different areas for different purpose. So there is one area you create which is only working set, or every single data or everything related to this ABAP system is stored in this area 1, and anything from a different data source which you want to bring, you store in a different area. That way you are still using SAP HANA as a central database, but you have dedicated area for data which was ported from a legacy system, for a data which was available for your current production, or maybe you can have hundreds of other systems from where you port the data. Once all the data is kept here in single HANA box, you can analyze and carefully put it from here to here also. You can move it between the areas. But first is simply dump it. So data provisioning basically does this, where you can use BODS or SLT, different techniques are there, which creates basically this dedicated area to bring all the data, all the artifacts, including table structures, yeah, all the tables, all the table structures, database data types, everything, it comes from one system to another system, basically replicating the whole thing without disturbing your current set. Now you may see there is a product table in area 1. There may be also a product table in area 2 as well. Same name table. It is possible, right? But if you would have directly tried porting it to area 1, it would have destroyed completely the existing product table and replaced it with the Oracle fetched table, which was more risky. So that's why you create dedicated areas where you, so that you can keep the separation between these different data coming from different systems. And also there are some areas where SAP deliver their tables, right? So SAP also have to deliver you something with which this HANA DB is running. So that's SAP managed areas. Okay, so how do you manage this in case of a database system? What are all these areas called? These are called schemas. In a database system, schema is used to group all the database objects. Okay, it used to group all the database objects in the database. So what is a schema? So that's basically a schema, guys, which I am talking about in a database, and this concept is there with every database, not just HANA DB. This concept is there with every database. It's called schema. It's a managed, it's an area where you SAP or database vendors manage their objects. So what is schema? Let's note down the definition. Very important from interview point of view. What is a database schema? First interview question if you're going for any interview where you have database in picture. So what is a schema? A schema is nothing but it is a mandatory database object itself. Okay, every database mandatorily will have it. Mandatory database objects itself, which is used to store database objects. This allows clear separation of database objects which resides in system created by database vendor, customer, partner, so on. So anybody who wants now new set of tables, new set of things, it's basically allows you to separate. Another powerful reason why we use schema is controlling the authorization. Okay, so basically to control the DCL in database, to manage the constraints in database, we use schema. Now let me take an example. I want all the people who has user in ABAP system. Okay, I want all the developer, listen this carefully, very important. I want all the developer who are there in having user in ABAP system. Okay, they have some users have an access to this ABAP system. Now I want them to not allowed an access to this area, because this is a sensitive data which I have got it by any chance to my DB, right? Now since they have an access to this, how can I restrict them to access this? I can impose constraints. I can say none of these users should have rights to access this area too. I can apply it at schema level, a constraint. I can say none of the people in the company, though they have a user in HANA DB, they are not allowed to look at the content of this area. That's how I can restrict people to access the data from this area. It's a restricted area. And this is maybe an area which I'll say those users who have access to ABAP system should also have an access to this area, so that security and consistency between these two are maintained. So schema plays a very important role to apply DCL in a system. Now let me open up another topic which ideally we would have learned in our college days, basic database concepts. What are all the different types of statements in database? This is important. Usually I assume that people knows this, but just a refresher for all of you. Different types of database statements.
DDL, DML, and
Yes,
DCL.
that's what I'm coming to. I need this to cover because I don't want people to miss out on anything, because some of the
Yes.
people may not have equal knowledge as you are. Maybe you have 20 years or 10 years. Some of you have 20 years, a very rich experience. Your experience is uncomparable. But I want everybody to be on same page. I still have people who are just 1-2 year experienced in my batch. So I want everybody together to work on it. So let's
Sure,
look
sure.
at the first category DDL statement called data definition language. Statements which works with creation of database objects, creation and maintenance of database objects. What is a database object? Database object could be a table, could be a view, could be uh, a trigger, a procedure. All of these are called database objects, which you store typically. This is why you use a database, to store these objects into it. Okay, so it controls the creation and maintenance of database objects. Statements like example, create table, create alter statement, drop statement, truncate statement. These are all the database statements used for controlling the creation and maintenance and deletion of database objects. Okay, deletion of database objects. Now, one question to all of you: what is the difference between truncate and drop? 100% certification question if you're going for Oracle certification. 100% certification question. I'm not sure about HANA, but yes, I am Oracle certified. That's the only certification I did in my life, and that was too during college days, because I was also in fear of not getting a job. So that's why I had to do it. And as we all know, how do we do certification? Using dumps. I scored 96%, and I'm not proud on that. So what's the difference between drop and truncate? Anybody who knows database till the depth level? What is the difference between drop and truncate command in any database? What is the difference? Okay, let me tell you.
Drop actually drops a whole entire table on the data, and truncate, I think, something to do with the memory. It just
Drop also
deletes the thing.
also removes
Yeah,
memory, right, Chandra? Drop also removes
yeah.
memory. Then okay.
Uh,
So when you create, okay,
and
let me come.
you go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, when you create a new table in any database, what happens? The table gets created. Its structure gets created. Okay, its structure gets created. Okay, this structure is called initial extent. Initial extent. Now database doesn't work on like kilobyte or byte of memory. What it does, like whenever you go to a shop, okay, let's say big branded showroom you go, okay, and now you say I want 100 gram, okay, I want 100 gram of sugar. Will they give you? Some of the brands will say no, we don't offer that. Minimum quantity which you should purchase is 1 kilogram of sugar. Otherwise, we don't offer 100 gram. Okay, like some retail stores, they don't offer. At least minimum quantity should be 1 kg. That's how database works. Database, when it creates space for a table, it says I will give you 100 kilobyte of space for your initial extent, for your structure of the table, and I will give you additionally, let's say 500 kb or 500 MB of space for your records. Now when this 500 MB is full, what will happen? Anybody, any guess? When this 500 MB is full and there is more data to come, let's say 2 MB data is more to come in this table, what will happen?
You give additional extra, it will get additional extents.
It will get, no, it will get, yes, additional extent, but that's actually a memory which it gives you. And I want to ask this question that will you get 2 MB because your data exceeded? Now data which is supposed to come is 502 MB, let's say. What will happen when your data size is 502 MB? Will you get 500 MB and then 2 MB additional by database? Database won't do this. Just like you cannot get 2
Yeah,
grams.
you have to allocate table space, correct? I don't know.
Yes, it will allocate another 500 MB to you. Simple reason.
Yeah.
Now, whether you use all 500 or not, that's called packet size. So it always allocates you the space in packet sizes. You can control this in our ABAP system when we create our database tables also. Let me quickly show you. There's a data category option in SAP system. So control 6 to open SAP GUI window, and I'll show you in S11. Basically we make that setting in the technical setting of database table. So I go to the product table which I was talking about, and there you will see in the technical settings, this is the space data class. What is the size category? What will be the chunk size? So internally SAP determines, okay, this is the size which it would need probably as a next big chunk size to define the number of records. So with this it controls the chunk size, okay, this category value. So that's how database allocates the memory. Now when you do a truncate, okay, there is also another point here called delete statement. So delete table. Now this table deletion is actually comes under DML category. It doesn't come under DDL category. DDL category always deals with memory, guys. Point one. So delete table would delete the records at this memory, but it won't flush the memory. It won't free the memory. So if you have some records here, it will just delete the records from the memory. It will still keep, let's say by any chance if table is quite big and you're deleting all records, it will still keep the memory allocated, guys, allocated. Okay, delete statement. When you do truncate, what truncate does, it deletes all the additional chunks which were allocated for a table except initial extent. It will leave the structure intact. It will leave the table structure initial extent memory intact in the table when you do a truncate table. But the moment you drop table, it also deletes the initial extent and structure of the table permanently. So that's the difference between truncate, delete and drop command. First interview question if you are coming as an ABAPer or as an database consultant in my company, this is a fresher interview question. If you are a fresher, this is my first question to you. Difference between drop, truncate and delete command. If you are coming for a fresher interview, not for an experienced interview. Experience, the level will be more harder. And if you're certified, of course, then the level of interview even increases a lot. I am more tough, very tough to people who are certified because they are certified. I can expect more from them. So kind of certification is a advantage sometime if your interviewer is Anubhav like interviewer. Certification is a disadvantage. Don't think you will get job if you have certification in hand. Okay, now if we drop directly, then the whole table will be deleted. Free the memory, absolutely. It will delete the whole table with also the initial extent will get deleted and the memory will be freed completely. When you do truncate, it leaves the initial extent, it leaves the structure of the table, but it deletes the memory which was additionally allocated in the chunk size for filling the data along with the data, of course, and memory gets deleted. When you do delete, it just delete the data, memory remains allocated. Okay, It doesn't touch memory because it comes under a category of DML command. DML command stands for data manipulation language, which purely deals with data manipulation, inserting records, modify records. In ABAP we have modify statement, we have update statement, we have delete statement. These are all comes under data manipulation language, deals with manipulation of data. Okay, DML language. Next comes is DCL, data control language. Imagine a salary table where you have salary for all the employees. If you by any chance get an access to it in your company, you can watch salary of yours and your colleagues, and by any chance if it's more risky, then you can even modify your salary, because there is an automated program which runs at the end of every last working day of the month, crediting the salary to your account, reading this table, right? And if you have an access to this table, then you can even create problem for company. You can go and update the data record where the salary field for your employee ID, and then automated program just credits that much of salary to your account, right? So how do you control the security? So you need to be uh, you know uh, secure. So that's what is controlled by DCL, data control language, and that's also a concept which we use with CDS DCL concept to control what is that something can somebody can see. DCL, data control language. In this there are statements like grant and revoke statement, okay, which controls the data control language, DCL statement. Then comes is DQL, data query language. Basically all your select statement comes under DQL. Okay, all your select statement where you do whether select star, single star, blah blah blah, whatever, that all comes under DQL statement, data query language. Next comes is TCL, very powerful, transaction control language. Okay, transaction control language commands are commit work, rollback. Anybody, what is definition of transaction? Interview question. What is definition of a transaction? You paid training fees to Anubhav. That's a transaction, isn't it? Yes, no?
Yeah.
What is
I,
definition
I,
of a transaction?
I think any action that happens.
Incorrect answer. I create a table in database. Is that a transaction? For
No,
data.
I'm not talking about that. And I'm talking about in terms of object
Practical.
definition.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, there is a word, very fancy word used here by Krish, LUW. Okay. I agree with you, but can you define? In interview, what will you say? LUW is a transaction? Okay, let me tell you. Any DML operation on database, okay, which is persisted or discarded, okay, which is until, or I would say any DML operation which you give to database until it is persisted, okay, until it is persisted or discarded completely, is a transaction. Now it's a complicated subject. To define the transaction, we need to go deep inside the properties of a transaction. Transaction follow acid property, atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. If anywhere you see this, it could be your SAP LUW concept also. There also you try to achieve acid property. If anywhere in your life, everywhere, wherever your life, any programming language, any technology, you see these four meeting, that's a transaction. Okay, that's a transaction. Let me explain it now. Atomicity. Atomicity means there is always two possible outcomes of a transaction. One is completely past another is completely failed. Okay, when you go to an ATM machine and say give me $100, will ATM machine ever do this? Like, okay, take $50, come tomorrow, I'll give you 50. Will it ever do that? Either it will give
No.
you $100 or it will not give you anything, right? That's called atomicity. A transaction is always having two possible outcomes: completely passed, completely failed. It never happens that you write 3 insert statements and 2 delete statements and 1 update statement. What happened? 3 insert got successfully created, 1 delete got created successfully, but 1 delete and 1 update failed. It never happens. Never happens. If it is happening, don't trust on that database. That database is not a fully qualified database, or that system is not fully qualified system to handle your business, to handle your system. Transaction has to follow atomicity property. Only two possible outcome of a transaction: completely pass, completely fade. Consistency: every transaction should leave system in consistent state. Example: you have an employee and department table. You are trying to insert a record in employee table for a department which does not exist. Will this be allowed? You're trying to insert employee in the system for a department which does not exist. Should system allow this? Yes or no? Anyone? Should system allow you to insert an employee for a department and that department does not exist in company? Should not. Of course. डिपार्टमेंट ही नहीं है, एम्प्लॉय कैसे आ जाएगा? पहले डिपार्टमेंट आएगा, उसके बाद एम्प्लॉय आएगा, राइट? That's called consistency. It should not leave your database in inconsistent state. That's basically fulfilling constraints. If you put a primary key constraint, for example, that particular field, okay, that particular field should not have duplicate value. That's a primary key constraint. Department employee relationship, foreign key constraint. None of the constraints should violate. That's called consistency property in case of database. Isolation. I went to an ATM, I withdraw $100. My next is my friend. He goes to ATM and he is trying to withdraw $200. Will ATM say that I gave $100 to Anubhav, so I cannot give you? You take 100 only from me. Never happens. Every transaction is independent of each other. Okay, every transaction is independent of each other. It should not depend on another transaction. I did 3 insert, 2 delete and 1 update, and then my transaction was successful. I did a commit work. It completed my transaction, done. The next insert, delete, update, whatsoever I'm doing, it has nothing to do with previous operations. Commit was done. This is persisted state in database. That is my final state. Commit is done. That's complete. That ends a transaction, which means another definition for transaction: any TCL statement ends the transaction. Right? Whether you completely roll back to the previous state or you finish the work what you had started. Right? That's what I can say. Right? Any TCL statement, the moment you put it, it ends the transaction. Whether you completely save everything or you roll back what you were doing from the last saved state, right? Isolation, very important. Every transaction is independent of each other. Isolation property. Durability. I want to insert 50 billion records in my database. That is actually a massive data to my database, and my database doesn't have that much of memory. what should happen? Should it insert as much as the capacity of the database, or should it say nothing should be inserted? Anybody? What should be the case? If I'm massively inserting data, massive data to database, and it knows that it is not capable of storing this data, what should happen? It should cancel the transaction. You're trying to withdraw money from your account. You don't have money in your account. What should happen? Should money be withdrawn considering that you're going to get salary on the first day of next month? Should the money be withdrawn from your ATM considering that you're going to get your salary on first of upcoming month? Should not. Durability, very important. Every transaction should be durable. Should not create confusion. Yeah, it should not lead to inconsistency. Basically, it should be durable enough, then only that's called a transaction. Okay, you're trying to delete 500 records, you don't have that in system, you just have 300 records. How will you delete? You cannot. It's durability. You need to leave the DB in durable state. That's durability. If these four acid properties are satisfied, it's called a transaction. And a transaction gets over when you give a TCL statement. Until then, it's one logical unit of work. Whatever number of DML statements you are giving to database, it's not immediately saved to the system. It's not completed. It's managed by TCL. TCL decides ultimately whether you want to save permanently these changes or you want to roll back to the last saved state. Until two TCL statements, it's a transaction. Okay, so on the time window, if you want to write it, if this is the set of operation I'm doing, so I did my last commit. So a triangle represents a commit or a rollback, basically a commit, last saved state, and then I'm doing small operations. I'm inserting record, I'm deleting, I'm basically giving DML statements. Okay, I'm giving lot of DML statement, lot of insert, update, delete, blah blah, modify, whatever I want to give, I'm giving. Now at this point I decide that I don't want these changes to be persisted in database. I can do rollback, it reaches here. And if I want whatever I did to be finally published, I can do a commit here. That's what applies to even any technology you see. It applies also to this PPT what I am open. If I just close this PPT, what will happen? Will it show you the content what I've written? Of course not. I have not committed my changes. I am inside a transaction. I am somewhere in here. I am somewhere here. I am doing my transaction. Until I save, until I commit, it's not a complete transaction. I saved now, it successfully saved. Sometimes you don't have a memory to save, it will not even do any save since last commit state if you don't have memory in computer. That's durability of a transaction. Is that clear to everybody? What is transaction? DCL, DML. By looking at these terms, they look simple, but in interview when somebody asks real questions about them, we get confused. Especially when I was fresher, I used to confuse between TCL and DCL because they both look same, TCL and DCL. Okay, I used to get confused between these two when I was a fresher, but now it's clear in my mind because I memorize these things a lot during day and night. I still remember these concepts from my job search days. TCL and DML. I'm an electronics student. I have never read a database until I went to Bangalore for searching my first job. There I learned database for the first time, and when I learn something, I go so deep into the technology. I go so deep until it doesn't give me satisfaction of learning. Okay, so hope you will remember all of this in upcoming days, in upcoming chapters, so I can relate these things to our system, to our database, to our application layer. I can showcase these things in the system to you. And of course we got to now go and look at these database tables. So try to see these database tables yourself once in the system if you're able to find them and look at the data. Now one last point before we close, If you see these database tables, which you will of course see them in our system, in our cal system, but you see the table are empty. Usually if you are using cal system, the data will be there, guys. 100% data will be there if you're using cal. You see product table, data is there. But by any chance, if you see data is not there because you're using company system, your company system, there is no data by any chance in these tables. There is a transaction which you can run here in your SAP system to fill the data in these tables. And don't panic, nobody will fire you for that, because this is all sample demo tables for EPM data model. Your company will not fire you if you fill these tables or do something with these tables in your systems. But don't delete them, of course. Don't delete this, don't drop these tables. Okay, just work with these tables, fill in some data, fire select queries, no problem. Write Z reports, doesn't matter, nobody will fire you for that in your company system. And by any chance, if you don't find data in this table, let me tell you, there is a transaction in the system with which you can fill these tables with some data. Okay, and let me just search. I forgot that transaction, so I know I can search it. It starts with something EPM DG, something is there. Let me search. Yes, start data generation, IoT, CEI, HANA PAL, data generator. Yes, SEPM underscore DG transaction you can use to run and generate the data in the system. You can generate products, you can generate purchase orders, you can generate sales orders, you can generate invoices. Yeah, so all of that you can use. You see ITEIO, you remember now, ITEIO is our company name, the demo company name. So that's our company, guys. So we can generate lots of data in the system using this transaction SEPM underscore DG. I guess yes, SEPMDG. Let me note down this in PPT. So in your company, if you see these tables empty, you can generate data in these tables automatically using transaction code this. Okay, this is a data generation transaction code for these demo tables, sample tables. Nobody will fire you. Go ahead and generate the data, make your system ready for our real action starting from next class. So till now it's all making yourself ready for ABAP on HANA. Our launch pad is ready. We are going to launch this rocket of ABAP on HANA in our next class onwards. By far I made your system available to all of you. By far I made you used to ABAP development tools in Eclipse. By far I made you used to the concept of SAP HANA. And now we're going to shoot this up and we're going to learn all the latest cutting edge technology concepts like performance tools, new SQL syntax, code pushdown techniques, HANA information modeling, SQL script, procedures in SAP HANA, ABAP database connectivity ADBC, ABAP managed data procedure AMDPs, CDS views, and finally an analytical app on top of CDS OData exposed from ABAP on HANA system, code pushdown techniques, proxy objects, and lot more to come. So stay tuned. See you next weekend. Any questions before we close today's class? Sorry for extending about 15 more minutes. Anyone? Any question before we close today's class? If not, we can close here. So please practice what we did by far. Try to replicate things, small programs. Also, if you have time, please look at these tables and some sample data in these tables. Try to understand their structures will be helpful.
Anubhav, I have a quick question. Is this EPM model available on S4 HANA too?
Yes, it is. In fact, wherever you have NetWeaver, it's available actually.
Okay.
Okay, there's a question. Are all ERP tables not available in HANA? They are. If your HANA consultant have done the migration to SAP HANA, they are available. And majority of your custom code will work. 99% of your custom code will work. What will not work is what I will cover in our next video. Native SQL statement which were written only for Oracle database will not work, because now you in HANA has different native SQL statements. Those will not work. Okay, some index which you have told to database some indexed, you typically hint the database indexes to use for performance improvement. Those index hints will not work. Some database specific statements will not work when you migrate to HANA. We will look at some of those rules, and also how to identify what will work, what will not work. We do a code inspector checks using DB, functional DB variant, to find out which are all the risky things which will work or not work in upcoming chapter. So stay tuned for that. Can I use these tables in client system to practice? Yes, you can, of course, no problem. Nobody will fire you. You don't need permission for anybody to make use of these tables. But make use of dev system, don't use production. Okay, of course, that's why you have DQ and PE. So use your dev system. You can use these tables, practice them. They are available in any system, S4HANA system also, of course, because it's ultimately based on NetWeaver. Yeah, so from NetWeaver 7.4 these tables are available. You can in fact create nice demos on this, but I still recommend people to don't go with your own systems. Use cal is better. Yeah, even something goes destroyed, nobody will you don't have a risk. Yeah, we can recreate the whole system again in cloud. Use cal, that's a better option. That's my recommendation again. But yeah, still, if you can manage it, you want to save cost, go and make use of your company system. You know how to generate the data in case if you don't have data in these tables. We're going to use these tables in upcoming days. I'm going to show you a nice OIA scenario created by Mr. James, and that's a hypothetical character. We will take use of this hypothetical scenario to build on top of it. With that, thank you so much. See you on the next weekend. Goodbye.